Okay, so now that we're in Lent, we're thinking about our sins, and we're thinking about the Passion of Christ, what our sins have caused the Sacred Heart, right? And so we think we're good, and we proceed forward. And what happens if we should fall? What do we do? Is it possible that you could fall into sin after leading a life of many years of believing that you are in, and all things considered equal, that you're in a state of sanctifying grace? Is it possible to fall? I want you to know that there's a procedure in the spiritual life that will help you if you should fall into sin. You who love God, the only one who are watching this, so people who want to love God or who love God, right? Probably. Maybe somebody stumbled on it, who knows? But first of all, just a couple of thoughts as I just finished my Sorrowful Mysteries meditation. Now, picture yourself falling into sin after enjoying many months or many years now of being in a state of grace, receiving the sacraments, praying diligently, and through weakness you fall into sin. Okay? So now you find yourself perhaps in mortal sin, but your conscience is so unnerved, you have a desire to get back into the friendship of God. A very sure sign that God is pushing you out of that hole that you fell into. First thing I want to mention is this. This is what Jesus said to St. Gertrude the Great. Now, this is what I say to somebody who has fallen into sin. He said, when anyone, for those of us who may have fallen into sin, when anyone looks upon a crucifix with devotion, looks upon it with devotion, so you're not just looking at it, moving it to dust under it. You're looking at it and you're considering who he is and what he did. When anyone looks upon the crucifix with devotion or kisses it with that same disposition, he says, this is what I'm saying to that person. If it were necessary, I would die for you all over again. Does that sound like a God who has no desire to forgive you? Of course not. So, this Lent, today, if you find that you have fallen from the grace of God, look upon the crucifix, get a crucifix, and simply look upon it with devotion. Realize who's on that cross, why he was born, why he died, and the price that he gave to spend so that you can be with him forever in heaven. And then try to accuse him of not forgiving you for whatever you've done. Jump back into the spiritual saddle. Profess your absolute intention to sin no more, to go forward loving God with all your mind, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your body, and promising him that with the help of his grace, you will avoid every occasion of sin. That's all. He didn't come to condemn us. He came to give us the grace to have sorrow for our sins, to forgive us our sins, and to keep us out of sin. And if you should have fallen, don't be surprised, first of all, because if you are, it's a sign of profound pride. So says the spiritual combat. And so I go to the second part of this video, which is this. How to discover, chapter 4, whether you distrust yourself and place your confidence in God. And it has to do with how you feel after you commit a sin. Okay? Watch this. The presumptuous man is convinced that he has acquired a distrust of himself. I'll never sin. I gave that up 4 years ago. I gave that up 10 years ago. I'll never do that again. The presumptuous man is convinced that he has acquired a distrust of himself and confidence in God. But his mistake is never more apparent than when some fault is committed. For if he yields to anger and despairs of advancing in the way of virtue, you fall, you say, I can't take this anymore. I'll never advance in the spiritual life. I'm just going to quit. I'm going to give up. He's yielding to anger. He despairs of advancing in the way of virtue. This is evidence that he placed his confidence in himself and not in God. That was his fault. That's why he fell. The greater the anxiety and despondence, I'm so depressed. I can't believe I did this. I can't. Listen to the words. I can't believe I did this. Believe it. You're a human being and you fell into sin. Oh, believe it. Believe it. And think about, analyze your sin. What happened? Did you place yourself in the occasion of sin? Usually that's what happens. And then you say, I'll be on my guard. It's not the way it works. So, the greater the anxiety and despondence, the greater is the certainty of his guilt. What guilt? The guilt of his trusting in himself and not in God. The man who has a deep distrust of himself and places great confidence in God is not at all surprised if he commits a fault. He doesn't abandon himself to confused despair like, oh, I can't believe this. He's depressed. He lays down. He can't pray. That's pride. He doesn't abandon himself to confused despair. He correctly attributes what has happened to his own weakness, which God forgives, and lack of confidence in God. You fell because you are weak and you lack confidence in God. Thus, by this, he learns to distrust himself more, and he places all his hopes in the assistance of the Almighty. He detests beyond all things the sin into which he has fallen. No doubt about it. Oh my God, I hate my sin. Oh my God. And perhaps the more you fell into it, the more you hate it. I heard the most beautiful Gregorian chant today. I have to play it for you at the end of this, and perhaps I will leave this in the bottom. So don't despair. You, my friends out there, all of you. You fell into some sin? Don't be stupid. Confess it. Get on your knees. Go to God. And beg him for true sorrow. I'm sorry, Lord. I'm sorry what I did. I hate it. Those are good dispositions. I hate what I did. Please give me perfect sorrow for what I've done. Now to get that, you have to consider what your sin did to him. Look upon it. Think about who's on it. Think about what he suffered. And then think about the ingratitude that we have to just keep offending him. Don't do that. He forgives you. He forgives you. Be confident in that. We say in the Creed, and I believe in the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body. Think. He detests beyond all things the sin into which he has fallen. He condemns the passion or the criminal habit that has occasioned his fall. He hates that habit. And you know what Bishop Sanborn said once? Usually sins of impurity are sins of weakness. This is what he said in a sermon that he gave many years ago. And he said, and God forgives that. That's what he said. He said, usually those sins are sins of weakness. He detests beyond all things the sin into which he has fallen. He doesn't make an excuse. He condemns the passion. What is the passion? What passion led you to the sin? Maybe it's a fear. Maybe it's a love, a disordered love. That's a passion. He condemns this passion or criminal habit that occasioned his fall. He condemns it. Lord, I hate this, what I did. I hate it. I know it's wrong. I beg you. He conceives a deep sorrow for his offense against God. Now you're coming out of the ditch. But his sorrow accompanied by peace of mind now. Let's be rational people here. Let's not think, you see, it would be wrong to say, oh, God doesn't love me. He'll never hear my prayers now. Stop. Stop that silliness right now. Stop it. It's ridiculous. God won't hear your prayers. God won't hear your prayers. He's going to hear your prayer. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. He's going to hear your prayers. Don't be silly. Don't say things like that. I want to encourage everybody here to, this Lent, start anew. We're in the first Saturday of Lent. Tomorrow's the first Sunday of Lent. Get back in the spiritual saddle. God does not care what you've done, how many times you've done it. Confess it and get back into it. Resume your prayers and know, deep down, we're all criminals. That's what we are. Father Grou, Grou, said in this book, Spiritual Manual, there isn't any crime that any one of us isn't capable of committing. Think about what that means. Think about the most holy person you know, and think about the most disgusting sin a man could commit. That holy person could commit it. Do not despair, no matter what you've done. Get on your knees, beg this good God for his mercy, and don't let the devil discourage you. You're a sinner. That's why you're here. His sorrow, the penitent's sorrow, accompanied by peace of mind, does not interrupt the method he has laid down. Don't abandon your prayers or your spiritual life. Stop with that silliness. Stop. He does not interrupt the method he has laid down, nor does it prevent the pursuit of his enemies to their final destruction. His sorrow does not interrupt the method he has laid down, and his sorrow does not prevent the pursuit of his enemies to their final destruction. Who are your enemies? The enemies of your soul. Could be people, damned souls, devils. I sincerely wish that what has been proposed here would be attentively considered by many who think they are very devout. Oh, God won't hear my prayers now. I ruined it. I blew it. No. That's not the way God works. What if Mary Magdalene thought like that? What if she thought like that? We wouldn't have a St. Mary Magdalene, would we? Think. I sincerely wish that what has been proposed here would be attentively considered by many, you and me, who think they are very devout. Yet from the moment they commit a fault, they will not be pacified, but hurry away to their director, more to rid themselves of the distress arising from self-love. Oh, Father, I did this. Oh, Father. Than from any other motive. No, it would be well for us to go in there and say, Father, I did this again, and I'm not surprised. I don't love God enough. I hate the sin. I hate it, Father. That's a rational conclusion. Their principal care should be to wash away the guilt of sin in the sacrament of penance, and to fortify themselves with the Eucharist against a relapse. There's your remedy. You fell into sin? Get on your knees, look at Jesus, and say, I did it again, Jesus. I did it again. And tears will probably start welling up in your eyes. I did it again. You know what I tell Jesus? I despair of myself. St. Charles Borromeo was heard by a monk saying, I despair. The monk said, you can't despair. He said, I despair of myself, but I hope in God, and I trust in his mercy. And at this stage of the game in my life, I don't trust myself. I know better. Okay? Let's just leave it at that. I know better. And I'm not ashamed to admit it, because anybody, including the holiest man or woman walking the face of this earth, who thinks that they are beyond falling into the sin, the ditch of mortal sin, he or she is sadly mistaken. And if you think like that, God may very well let you fall into sin to prove that without him you can do nothing. Get your crucifix. Contemplate who's on it. Contemplate why he did it. And kiss him devoutly. And know that he's saying, Bob, Robert, or whatever your name is, I would do it all over again if you were the only person who needed me to die. Isn't that enough for you to forget what you've done? See you on the next one. Thank you.